So this is where we talk about congruity, about serendipity, and about alignment. Remember we talked about stacking the stones so that they're aligned, even if they look off kilter, there's a certain balance to it all. This is where I didn't have my vision. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was on task to do, and it began to profoundly affect me. My goal became just size my agency. Well, I guess I'm here to do something big. My big, hairy goal is the $20 million ad. So what did I start saying yes to? And what did I start saying no to? Well, car dealers would come along, and they were the biggest spenders in the market. And they were gnarly. And they would come in and they would thump their fists, and they would demand that you would show up at their remotes on Saturday and Sunday when you were supposed to be with family. I would be standing out there in Newport Richie arguing with this kid about soda selection as my arm was frozen and I'm digging through trying to find him with cows out in the field on some far-flung edge of the Tampa Bay market, because he just said, if I'm going to spend $150,000 a month with you, I own you. I own you. And you will be at all the remotes. People would show up and go, why are you at this radio remote? I go, because I have to be, or I'll get fired. And why do I have to be? And why? Because I'll get fired? Because I decided I have to make $20 million a year to have this group. I would come back miserable. I mean, I just started having heartburn. My body started throwing off signals. I mean, left and right. So I began to think something's wrong. One day I came home and I said to my wife, I really need help. And she said, but why? And I said, because my soul is dying. And I didn't know how to say it. I said, my soul is dying, and I don't know what to do because I'm succeeding to death. I am succeeding to death. And I said, I don't know what to do. And about that time, my wife went to the hospital, and she had our fourth kid, and I shared some of this. I was driving, and I saw this guy was about 85 years old. He was making me crazy because he was so good-natured. And I thought he was almost dead then, you know? You should be miserable. And the guy's just happy as a lark. And, you know, I said, can I ask you something? He says, what? I says, you seem really happy. You can't be employed, because the guy was really like 85 or 90, and he was one of these volunteers at the hospital. He says, I am. And I says, well, so did you have a career? He said, I had a great career. He goes, I crushed it, basically, in my terms. And he says, I have a great pension, I'm retired. He says, so is it the money? Because, like, if you have money, why are you doing this? You're driving me around a parking lot. He goes, no, I really enjoy doing this. I said, so what is it then? I almost wanted to grab him and go, what is it, universe? Confess. Just confess it. I know you're hiding in there. You happy, well-adjusted people. Because I am doing everything right. And he looks at me and he goes, well, that's a good question. I says, what makes it worthwhile for you? Looking back, what do you think has been the big thing? He says, I think it's been relationships. If I put it in a word, it would be relationships. And it was at that moment I thought, I am going to take this completely by faith, because I had two very stark paths ahead of me. One was to continue with my ad agency, and I knew it was going to end up in divorce for a fact, because I was on the edge of divorce as it was. I was alienated from my wife. I hated my children. To be brutally honest, they just had become consumers. I mean, I would come in and there'd be McDonald's wrappers on the ground. I was angry. I felt like no one respected the money that I was bringing home. That was, in my mind, killing me. It was killing me to bring this home. And I was trying to grow more of it, and it was like locusts. The more that I would produce, the more they ate. So I didn't hate them personally. I just hated the dynamics that my life had become. It was just high consumerism, just disorganization. Everybody in it, grab, house full of stuff. And I'm being told that I'm succeeding, which was the most insidious and maddening thing of all. So one door was, go in that more fully. And as I peered into that door, I saw myself as an older gentleman that was divorced, lived in a really clean condo, didn't have all this stuff, right? And my kids visited me on the weekends, and I could tolerate it. And I would just be that lonely older guy that owned a sailboat with a slip on the beach. And I had this crusty career. The other door was, I went with what this gentleman told me, relationships. And I would just trust that I need to restore those relationships and rebuild and renew and recenter my life on people I no longer liked. Okay? That was just as frightening as the first story. And that's why when we talk about true venture, we talk about what? We talked about risk, didn't we? Well, both of those seem risky to me. Bleak and risky. And I sat one day and I thought, well, my soul's dying, so that's already dead or on life support. So there's two scenarios, and I just don't like boats. Okay? So I'm going to go with door B. You know? I'm going to go with relationships. I'm going to trust that this guy had some kind of wisdom in him. And I'm going to just take my family and get out of here. Get out of Dodge. Go renew, regenerate, find that centered place. And an incredible amount of serendipitous things began to happen. When there was that shift in me, and it was blind, and I think we talked about this, when you ask God or you ask your higher power or you ask your totem frog for help in the universe, you sometimes get this deafening silence, don't you? I mean, it's not just like you just get this booming voice. I got nothing. It's like, this is it? Nothing? You got nothing? Really? Because I'm hurting here, and I got two doors. Happened when I got married, too. I was like, and I really think it's like God or whoever doesn't want to get the blame is what I figured out of this. It's like, this is going to be your decision. So I was in the precipice of this, and I said, what should I do? Both decisions felt, and if for you that are on the journey, there's times in your journey where the decisions feel flat. They're not always inspiring. Sometimes there's just a crossroad, and you've got to take one of them. There's I forget who it was that said, when you come to a crossroad, take it. You know? And so I'd come to this crossroad, and I said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and go with it. And when I made that decision, things began to shift in my life. And I knew on a certain level that shift had to do with something that, looking back, I understand what it was. Is I was changing my navigational system.